We have a fascination with the sea. Watching it, being near it, sticking a toe into it, or remembering the happy holiday times spent by it.
Happy days are here again, the skies above are clear again. Let us sing a song of cheer again. Happy days are here again.
And what could be better than taking in the bracing sea air on one of Britain's dwindling number of seaside piers? From the early 1800s, any seaside resort wanting to take advantage of the rapidly growing railway network to bring tourists to their towns commissioned the building of one of these magnificent structures. At the beginning of the 20th century, there were around 100 of them on our coastline. Now, just over half that number still stand. Clevedon in North Somerset, a solid Victorian town with a solid Victorian clock tower commemorating the Diamond Jubilee of Queen Victoria. Quiet it may be, but Clevedon has a jewel in its crown that you literally cannot miss: its magnificent Victorian pier, described by Sir John Betjeman as the most beautiful in England. It's the only pier in this country to have a Grade 1 listing. Opened in 1869, its graceful design was partly achieved by moulding large quantities of discarded broad gauge rails from Brunel's South Wales Railway into slender, strong supports. On the 17th of October 1970, the pier was undergoing load testing, carried out every other year for insurance purposes. Disaster struck. A span at the seaward end collapsed and brought down the one next to it. For a few years it looked as if it would be left as a rusting, derelict skeleton. But the Clevedon Pier Preservation Society had ambitions. They could see what a tragedy it would be for the town and the whole area if this magnificent structure was lost. And after years of concerted effort, fund and grant raising, and endless persistence, the almost £400,000 which was eventually needed for the lengthy repairs and restoration was raised. It partially reopened in 1989, and after extensive works at the pierhead, the pier was fully reopened 9 years later. As the crow flies, it's about 8 miles from the elegance of Clevedon Pier to the newly remodelled seafront at Weston-Super-Mare. The larger of the two towns, Weston has a very long promenade, perfect to take in largely distant views of the tidal Bristol Channel. Weston's golden, sandy beach. It goes on forever. An ideal place for donkey rides. Ah, donkeys. I love donkeys. Fireman Sam and Thomas the Tank Engine. Beyond the beach, this doesn't deter some visitors who regularly ignore all the warnings and insist on wading out into it, having to be rescued by the inshore lifeboat and then hosed down. If you really want to walk out to sea, there's a far more sensible solution. Weston's graceful and curvaceous 21st century Grand Pier. With much celebration, the original pier opened in 1904, with a mind-improving 2,000-seat concert hall and theatre housed in the pavilion at its far end. Unfortunately, that was destroyed by fire in 1930. It was rebuilt to house the more traditional pier entertainments of the time. But on the morning of the 28th of July 2008, it happened again. Just 90 minutes to reduce the structure to a smouldering, twisted wreck. Being privately owned, there was no protracted haggling over raising funds to delay its rebuilding. It took just over 2 years, and at a cost of £39 million, in October 2010, the new Grand Pier arose from the ashes. Kerry Michael called it the town's heartbeat, and as proof others agreed with him, in its opening weekend it saw around 100,000 visitors. All this looks just a bit too much, you can escape to an oasis of calm to eat your fish and chips in peace, with fine sea views at no extra charge. From here, if you look towards the tip of the bay, past the expensive flats that were once the Nightstone Theatre, a distant silhouette juts out to sea. Burnbeck Pier, the forgotten pier of Weston-Super-Mare. It's a 20-minute walk from the Grand Pier, and from a distance, it all looks rather splendid. An impressive backdrop of freshly painted Victorian houses stand on the hill above, overlooking the Prince Consort Gardens. They were laid out to take advantage of the fine views when the pier opened in 1867, and they once boasted a floral clock. Now, it's a rather different story. Today, Burnbeck Pier, known locally as the Old Pier, is a very sorry sight. But back in the day it was the place to come to promenade, take the bracing sea air, and sample the genteel entertainments provided. At one time or another it boasted refreshment and reading rooms, a large concert hall, a roller skating rink, a bioscope cinema, a flying machine, a hurry-scurry, and a water chute. And it was where P&A Campbell's White Funnel Fleet paddle steamers discharged passengers and embarked on pleasure cruises out into the Bristol Channel to Penarth and Ilfracombe. In the Second World War it was taken over by the Admiralty, renamed HMS Burnbeck, and became a top-secret experimental weapons training and testing facility, including, amongst other things, Barnes-Wallis's famous Dambusters bouncing bomb. But that was all a long time ago. Those paddle steamers were scrapped in the 1960s, just as the foreign package holiday was widening horizons, and the pier was just too far away from the main part of the town. Tourists were losing interest. Burnbeck struggled on, but eventually closed in 1994. Since then, the pier has had several owners, all with ambitious plans. Nothing has happened. At Clevedon, the Pier and Heritage Trust is overseeing an investment of £2.25 million in a new visitor centre to cope with increasing numbers of visitors. And Weston's Grand Pier has plans to construct an observation gallery and install several new rides. Tens of thousands of people pass through its turnstiles every year. And Burnbeck Pier. What future does it have?